So, thanks everybody for tuning in. This is our third episode of Source Presents, which is a weekly webinar series that we're doing where we'll be talking to a huge range of people within the tech space and addressing the challenges that we're all facing. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Lucy Jones. I'm a senior talent partner here at Source. I have been with the business now for about 4 years. I was actually our first on the ground hire, and I am building out and work predominantly with our machine learning and AI companies to build their go-to-market teams. So I am very excited to introduce our guest this week, Hannah Morris. So Hannah has led a number of sales teams in different tech businesses and has since launched her own consultancy, Coaching Female Founders. Hannah, please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the work you're doing at the moment.
Amazing. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I mean, you did a brilliant introduction there of me yourself. But yes, I've worked in sales for about 15 years now, so a good long while, and was a salesperson myself, and then moved into sales leadership. And then over the past sort of 3 years, I've launched a coaching and consultancy business that mainly focuses on like sales coaching for creative female founders, because I've seen there's just such a huge gap in the market of people sort of understanding about what sales is, let alone how to do it and how to do it really, really well. So I work with female founders directly, but also work with organizations to help train their sales teams. So, and I focus on like 3 key areas. So it's the mindset, the skills, and the strategy that helps people be successful at sales. So and the company's called Let's Trailblaze. Just realized I didn't even say what it's called.
Awesome. So if you're not following Hannah on LinkedIn already, do. She's doing some amazing stuff. I love watching her content, so I'm sure you guys would all appreciate it too. So the topic for today is untapped potential, why women should be leading and selling in tech. Now, this is a topic I am particularly passionate about, and I think I know you are too, Hannah. As a young person in the space, there is a lack of female leaders and women who aren't leaders for me to look up to. So it's something I'm exploring a lot. I guess to start off our webinar, the first question would be, Hannah, why do you think sales is a great career for women?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think sales, and we were saying this a little bit earlier on, I think before we kind of jumped on, is that sales, I think, is quite a misunderstood craft and industry. And I think that, there are lots of things about sales that make, that are actually women naturally are really brilliant at those things that sales needs and requires. So I mean, look, so sales in general, it gives people it gives them that opportunity to empower themselves and to have a career that they can really kind of own. It's also really fun when when you get good at it. It's a really, really fun environment to be in, but also it's very very financially rewarding, and you get the opportunity to make incredible money when you're great at it, and that gives you freedom for your life, able to support your families or travel the world or do whatever it is that you want to do. And I think it's really important. I'm loving these topics that we're going to be discussing today, because I think it's really important that women see that it is accessible for them to be in this industry, and also to see why they have natural traits which would make them brilliant as salespeople.
Yeah, such a good point. I think especially when I started out my career, sales was never something that I had actually considered, and I always kind of shied away from it because I thought that sales was always kind of like the hustle bustle boiler room, but I fell into it and I've learned to love it. So and you mentioned there kind of women do have natural traits that make them great at sales. What do you think those traits are?
Yeah, so look, there's so many, but if I was to like narrow it down, the biggest one that springs to mind is the emotional intelligence. So that ability to, understand other people and understand your emotions, their emotions, understand body language. Women naturally have a higher level of emotional intelligence, right? I'm not saying that men don't have it, but look, women naturally, it's part of how we're built. So that straight away allows you to understand your customer more. Because actually, I just want to say, like, this is really, really important to communicate. Sales is, in the way I see it, and the way sort of I help people look at it, the perspective I help them with is, sales is about serving people. It's about helping people. And I think actually when we see it from that perspective, we think, okay, so we're helping people. And then we think of, right, all the female attributes which go really well in with helping people. So yeah, that emotional intelligence, that problem solving, being able to listen to somebody's challenges in their business and then think, okay, that's how I can solve it. We're natural problem solvers, right, in our lives. We want to help other people. Right, in general, I'm not saying every woman is out there wanting to help people, but a lot of women do. They're caring people. We want to help people. We want to help the best in people. We think of others often before ourselves. That makes you brilliant at sales, right? Because it's all about serving the customers and finding the solution for the customers. We're not thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about, right, what's the best solution for them? What's the best package for them? And then, we're going to serve them. Also, just being really adaptable in general. Women are great at adapting, multitasking. Again, brilliant for sales. The other one I was thinking as well was, and this one doesn't apply to me, but in general, I think a lot of women are this. Women are generally a little bit more patient.
Yeah.
Right, they're a little bit more patient. And actually in sales, you need to be a bit patient with a customer when you're listening to them, when you are problem solving for them. I naturally am a little bit impatient, actually, so it's something I have to work on. That one, I can be a little bit too fast.
I agree.
Impatient sometimes. So that's definitely something I have to watch. But at the same time, actually, when I'm coaching and when I am listening to customers, actually it does bring out my really, really patient side. And I think the other thing is, like, I think people think that sales is mostly about talking, but actually it's more about listening. And again, women naturally are brilliant listeners. So if you're brilliant at listening, you can pick out, what somebody needs, what their goals are in the business, and then serve them more effectively. So again, look, I've listed loads of things there, which are, reasons why women make brilliant salespeople. And there's loads more, but that's just like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, all such good points. And patience isn't really one that I think of too often, but brilliant point. I definitely say that I have more patience than some of the men in our team, for sure. But I'm not the most patient person. So I guess what do you think it is that is putting women off from getting into sales?
Yeah, brilliant. Another brilliant question. I think you said right at the beginning, actually, when you mentioned that to begin with, you didn't consider a career in sales, right? And you said, one of the things that you said that really stuck out to me was, you said, oh, there's that boiler room culture.
Yes.
Right. And it's not very attractive for women, right? Because I've kind of described the persona of a woman. We want to help people. We are, we want to problem solve. We think of others. We don't really want to go into this hustle culture, boiler room environment, which is all about, selfishness, really thinking of ourselves and our own money and our own sort of, objectives. So I think that kind of perspective and that thought of the environment being like that is, there's an aversion, I think, to that for women. So that's a big one, is the culture of it. I think a lot of women think that they're going to have to go in and sell their soul and lie and be dishonest, but actually sales isn't about that. Brilliant salespeople are honest people. They're honest. They're there to help people. And actually, if their solution isn't right for somebody, they're going to say to them, going to be really honest with you, this isn't right for you. This is what I'd recommend instead. This is the supply I'd recommend instead. Right? That's what it's all about. So I think it's definitely that culture environment. I I do think it's very male dominated, right? It's very, very male dominated in the sales teams, but also in the leadership roles. And that does put a lot of women off.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of women think, well, maybe it's not an environment for me because there's not really many role models or people that look like me in those environments. So maybe it's not for me. So I think that definitely puts women off. And I also do think that the way we communicate, and I say we, but probably definitely not me, but it's people in general, the way people communicate about sales and why you should have a career in sales, there's a huge emphasis on the financials, right? It's like the first thing. It's like, great, you can earn loads of money, earn loads of money, earn loads of money. Whereas actually to women, they're not always as driven by money. They're driven by the why behind the money. Like it's more if we were communicating, you know, how their role in that business is going to be helping people, serving people, helping them enrich their lives, gives them freedom. Again, it's a little bit more, I don't know, compelling and endearing, and it will pull people towards it. Whereas I think at the moment, it's just, it's sort of spoken about, you know, the kind of make loads of money, boiler room culture, you're going to achieve loads. It's like, I think it repels a lot of women.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And something that we've been looking at recently that is something I hadn't even thought about before was the language used in job adverts can put women off. And it is because it's that kind of like hunter, like it's all about the money. So yeah, it's such a good point. Such a good point. So I guess we've obviously got this perception of sales from history and Wolf of Wall Street. Do you think sales has evolved over the years has changed and is more suited to women than what we've previously seen?
Yeah, 1,000%. I mean, look, going back, I know I'm saying it is male dominated now, but it's nowhere near as dominated by males as it was, right? So when I was first in sales, you know, I would be the only woman in a sales team, and you know, the only like second woman in the office, and then the other woman might have been the EA or the PA, right? So it was very, very different back then. Now, actually, there is more, although we still need to increase this, there are role models of women who are brilliant in sales. And then that actually is changing the hearts and the minds of people in sales. And they're seeing that, oh, okay, you've got different attributes and traits that you're exercising that's making you successful at sales, and it's becoming more accepting. So I do think there is a shift and there is a change, and there are more women who are being successful in it, and as a result drawing more women into it. But I do also think that you know, buyers are the buying landscape has changed, and buyers are more educated now, and the sale has to be more consultative. You know, sellers aren't falling for those pushy, you know, manipulative sales tactics that, you know, the Wolf of Wall Street type sellers might have been able to get away with back in the day. In a lot of environments, as I said, it's very consultative, and it's a different type of sale. So I think that's definitely attracting more women, and it is changing the landscape in those environments.
Really good point. Yeah, I definitely think that I've noticed, even from kind of like 5 years ago when I first got into sales, it was very much more, although I never worked at a car dealership, it kind of felt like that kind of like car dealerships, pushy, never take no for an answer. And now today our sales process is a lot more consultative, and it does take a bit more time, but it's really kind of more building those relationships as opposed to hard closing.
Yeah, it definitely is. It is about relationship building, and you know, again, it's that emotional intelligence that I mentioned before. Understanding your buyer, and I mean, I could talk about emotional intelligence in sales for a whole webinar in itself, but understanding when somebody needs what you've got and wants what you've got, and then when to continue speaking to them, or whether to actually introduce and sell to them. It's having that knowledge that is so important, and I think women can read that a little bit stronger sometimes, and nowadays I think it's needed. The buyers are more educated, and we need to sometimes accept no. If no is a no, let's not push a door that's closed. Like, let's actually push where it's moving, and be more effective and more efficient with our with our sales.
Understood. Yes, you just mentioned that you think women sometimes naturally do have a little bit more emotional intelligence than men. Why do you think that is?
I mean, good question. Again, that comes back to like the nature or nurture debate, right?
Yeah.
Is it that we're born that way, or is it that our lives and the circumstances that we fall in nurture us to have higher emotional intelligence? I'm not entirely sure why. I mean, but look, as girls, your friends come to you with their problems and ask you to help them solve them. And we're in lots of scenarios where we have to use emotional intelligence to understand human behavior and understand each other. Whereas in general, men aren't talkers, right? They're notorious for keeping things bottled up. So they're not having as many of those conversations on a high volume. So we could be born this way, or maybe we just have more opportunities and examples to problem solve and be in intense emotional situations that develops those skills.
Yeah, really good point, actually. I can't remember who or what we were talking about the other day, but somebody mentioned it was around like women and dating and how they're more successful than men, because after a date, a woman typically goes back to her friendship groups, and there's a whole WhatsApp where they're like dissecting every detail and everything that happened to really understand it on a deeper level, whereas men would go to their friends, or they might not even tell them they want on a date, but then they were like, oh yeah, it was okay, and that's it. So they don't really take the time to understand it from a deeper level.
There's loads of like correlations, I think, between the two, but yeah, it's a brilliant question, and the answer I don't honestly I don't really know, but yeah, it could be nature, it could be nurture, but yeah, I definitely see women sort of, they have a natural tendency to of like a higher emotional intelligence in general. That's not all women, but in general they are. And so yeah, you can develop a higher professional emotional intelligence, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, awesome. So my next question for you is, like, what more do you think companies can be doing to decrease the gender gap in sales orgs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, but I go back to what I said before. There are definitely more female, there's more representation in the teams, but I do still think there is work there. So I think increasing, those female role models in leadership, to show other women that it is accessible, and nurturing that talent, that female talent, to bring them into leadership, and sort of understanding and valuing that women might have slightly different traits and characteristics, and they might do something slightly differently to a man, but actually that doesn't mean that it's not good, right? So you can do something differently but still get an incredible result. And I think it's having that flexibility around, what people are sort of looking for, but then definitely getting more female representation in sales teams, in leadership roles. That will definitely attract more people into it. And as I said before, I think when you have more women in leadership roles, you then start to change the hearts and minds of other people, and the stereotypes that other people will have only had previously. I know definitely myself, like when people have first met me, I'm sort of quite small. I'm like 5'3" and quite smiley and bubbly, and sometimes people struggle to imagine that I could step onto a sales floor and lead a huge team with multi-million pound sales targets. Some people's brains can't compute it. And I don't, it's not their fault that they can't join those dots, because they've not seen any examples of it. So actually, in order to change the landscape and help bring more women in, we need to have other visible role models who, show that actually you can be warm and friendly and smiley and still get incredible results and do brilliant things. And that's one of the big reasons why I created Let's Trailblaze, actually, is to create more trailblazing female role models in business, so that the women of our generation, but also the generations to come, can believe but also achieve those heights. Because I just think there's not enough role models for everyone to look to be like, oh wow, like she's kind of like me, that means I can do it, right?
Such a good point. So I met with the ex-chief commercial officer at a company called Peak. Her name's Bethany Ayres, and she brought to my attention a quote that was, you can't be what you can't see. Now, I think somebody else said it originally, but that really struck a chord with me because it is so true.
Yeah. And look, and I think it's true for a lot of people, not for everybody. And that's why we need trailblazers to begin with, right? We need pioneers. We need people who haven't seen it, but they are visionaries and they can imagine it. And then they will trailblaze the way for other people to then walk more easily in their footsteps. So yeah, the first people, it might be a trickier path, and it takes a lot of self-belief and confidence to kind of push through the norms. But then, yeah, you're right. Then for a lot of people, it's they can't be what they can't see, which is sad, really, isn't it? But at least we know what we need to do to make a difference. So it's a clear thing to kind of change. I think the other thing is, that is quite important is, I think I said it earlier on, but I just want to say it again, is that communicating the value of having a career in sales, like for your customer, and how it impacts and improves people's businesses. And I think rather than just communicating about the targets and the money and that side of things, I think really communicating it in a way that is appealing to women and with the language you said before, I think that's all quite important to help change the playing field. Yeah,
really good point. I think another point to touch on is that kind of flexibility. I think naturally it is women's roles it has changed for some women, but I think most women, it is their role at home to take on the burden of childcare and that home
burden or the privilege.
True, the privilege. Depends who you ask, right?
I'm just playing devil's advocate there.
Children.
Yeah. Burden or privilege, exactly, depends upon the children. But you're right, it's the responsibility.
Yes, probably a better word to use.
Yeah, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
So to make that more accessible for a lot of women as well, in terms of work from home, work from anywhere.
Yeah. And I think, look, the pandemic has really accelerated that change, right? Because before, I mean, you working from home was just not a thing. You know, like if you wanted to have an afternoon off because you got someone fit in your kitchen, it was like you had to have approval like ages in advance. But yeah, now that we can work from home, I think that's brilliant. So you're right, that flexibility and, you know, appreciating that if people do sales really, really well, you can work smarter, less hard, and still get incredible results and get incredible results in less time. And that's what it's all about. The most skilled salespeople, we actually have to sell less. I mean, it's like if you love sales and you're brilliant at it, you actually get to sell less, which is sometimes a bit sad, but it means your conversions are higher. So yeah, having that flexibility and seeing that people don't have to be in the office from 8 till 8 or something. Yeah, it's really important. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, I think this kind of leads on to my next question quite nicely, because it was going to be like, what do you think is causing the disparity in men and women in leadership roles? And I think quite a few of those points probably are an element of the course.
Yeah, I think we've said a few of these. We were saying a lot about the hearts and minds again, that there's, you know, there is that sort of disparity in that gap, because there aren't enough role models for people to then go, oh, okay, yeah, I would give another woman a chance because I've kind of seen someone in action. And yeah, my other point was going to be around what you said before, around that flexibility of you know, for life and people's personal lives. And there was a stat that the Albright, they created like a survey, and they were saying as well that the number of women affected by poor work-life balance jumps to 52% at C-suite level. Wow. So at C-suite level, their work-life balance is impacted 52% of the time, right? Which is then a choice, isn't it, between life or work? And it shouldn't have to be that way, because again, as I said, you can get incredible results by doing things in you know, slightly less time or in different ways. So I think having that flexibility is is really, really important.
Is that something you saw whilst employed at C-suite level?
Yeah, massively. One of the reasons I'm not there now, right? Because I, was moving up the ranks in corporate environments, and the limited women that I was surrounded by, they quite often were not married, didn't have families, and or were late 40s, having kids on their own. And I just thought, actually, I don't want to choose between my life and my career. I actually want to have both. I still want to have a flourishing career where I am, fulfilling all my potential, but also want to have the flexibility to be with family, friends, have hobbies, and look after my health, all of these things. And yeah, I didn't see many examples of that in senior leadership roles, women who kind of had it all going on.
Yeah.
And they made a lot of sacrifices, whereas a lot of the men in those senior roles, they had families, they had everything going on, because they weren't the main sort of caregivers. So yeah, that definitely influenced my decision to set up my own business.
Interesting. And I think for my last question, I'm just conscious of time here, everybody is now kind of getting to that point where they're like, we need to hire women, we need women in our senior leadership team, without actually understanding why.
Yeah.
So why do we need women at that level?
I mean, look, so I think you're right. A lot of people are coming from the perspective of they want to tick a box, and they want to be diverse for being diverse sake, and so that their website looks a certain way. And what I'd first encourage them, what they need to do is they need to think about, actually, what is the value of bringing diversity into a team? Having a diverse amount of minds creates it's creativity, it's innovation, right? So you're going to see the different ways that you can manage teams, lead people, evolve the business, evolve the company. You're going to see perspectives that you wouldn't have seen before. And there are brilliant attributes that men have as leaders, but also brilliant attributes that women have. And so by increasing women in those environments, there's going to be, far more effective leadership.
Amazing. Well, look, Hannah, it's been so great speaking. I could talk about this topic, I think, for hours. Thank you all for joining us today. I am actually in the process of building out a Women in Tech community. So if any of the viewers today think that's something they could be interested in, feel free to drop me a message. Don't forget to follow Hannah on LinkedIn. She posts some awesome content. And yeah, thank you so much for jumping on today.
Thank you for having me. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.